Okay, so welcome to part 4 of our DNA interest group class. And we have a little bit of a larger group today. So this is exciting. And I'm Sherry Daniels. I'm the head of Library and Archives here at the Kentucky Historical Society. And I will let Linda introduce herself. And then we can kind of go around for a little bit and just kind of introduce yourselves, what you're up to, where your DNA level is and all that. And I know Linda usually has a few questions about whether you've tested or not. So Linda, take it away.
Hi, I'm Linda Colston. I work here in the library as a library tech and genealogist. And DNA is one of the fun things to do, right? Shake heads. Yes, yes, no, maybe so. Okay. Okay. Now, has everybody been here at least once before? Anybody's this their very first time? First time? All right, welcome, Pamela. If we say something and you get a little confused, just interrupt and say, hey, whoa, wait a minute, tell me what's going on. How many of you remember the assignment from last month? You want to share what it is? No? Everybody got a second or third cousin that they don't know yet?
Yes, I did that, and I found a little bit of a log jam I'm going to need some help with.
That's what we're doing. Is what I'm wanting you guys to do is find one, start working on it, because next month we're going to be looking at brick walls and other things, and I want to spend more time on actually each of us working through and helping each other work through some of these. Okay. And before we get started on the actual stuff, after we go around, I got a couple of just a couple of examples to show you from things that we have talked about in prior sessions. So I'll let let's see, Pamela's next on my screen. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us if you've tested and where you think you are as far as doing DNA?
I have tested my DNA. My name is Pam Tippett. I'm from Iowa. I actually was into the library where Sherry and Linda are yesterday, visiting here, sitting out here in the motel, which is why my internet connection might be just a little bit unstable. So yeah, I am to have lag. My first DNA test was my dad, and that was probably about 12 years ago with family tree, and it was a Y test. And since then, my mother has tested, and my father's cousins have tested. My cousin has tested on my paternal line. My sister has tested. And so I have a real hodgepodge of tests, but primarily, and my dad's sister has tested as well. Primarily, we were searching for an unidentified grandparent of the father of my grandmother. There are family stories about who that might be, which has not proved anywhere close to being the truth. So that's my little mystery. We think we have it solved, but my understanding DNA has been sketchy enough that I'm not ready to make any predictions to my family at this point. So that's where I'm at.
Charles, you want to go next?
My name is Charles Wright. I live here in Frankfurt. I had DNA tests with 23andMe and Ancestry back in 2019. And I haven't done a lot with them. And I had taken a class with Linda that she did at the Paul Sawyer Library a couple of years ago.
And you haven't done anything with it?
Well, I've gotten in contact with other people that have that show up as distant relatives. And I get frustrated because I'll contact them, but they won't give me any information.
That is something that we probably ought to figure par for the course.
Yeah.
And we've got workarounds that we try to, and I can show you an example today of examples of things you can find out without realizing you're finding them out. That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. I know you're not Phyllis, but
John, yeah.
Mr. Phyllis.
We only have one Zoom in the family.
Hey, no problem.
So what should I tell you?
Just share with us who you are and
Yeah, I'm John, and I live in Connecticut. And I've been doing genealogy since my great aunt got me started about 50 years ago. And I have tracked down some family members, but I'm stumped when it comes to DNA, and I thought I'd give that a try.
okay, have you done your DNA yet?
I sent it off to MyHeritage and Ancestry.
Awesome.
And I have a cousin who did a Y-DNA test because it's through my mother. And so I'm not related, but he was. And I'm interested in what you have to say about Y-DNA today, because I find it confusing trying to interpret what his results showed.
Okay. All right, Joyce.
Okay, I'm Joyce Carey. I live in Georgia. I was actually born in Frankfurt. I lived in Kentucky until 71, and then we moved to Georgia. I have done my DNA with Ancestry and MyHeritage, and I've been busy doing a lot of other things the last few years, so I hadn't done a whole lot with it. I actually started doing genealogy back in the 90s, and then I had to put it aside for about 10 years. Life gets in the way sometimes, so I'm just getting back to it. The assignment was interesting. I was first going to try to pick somebody that didn't have a tree, but that was, for me, too difficult right now. So I chose someone just at random. One of my matches at Ancestry said we were first or second cousins. And the interesting part is I knew his father. When I looked at his tree, I knew immediately who he was and how we were related. But we are like 4 or 5 generations apart. So I couldn't figure out how we could be first or second cousins. There's a lot of, I wrote it down somewhere, I forgot, there's something like 356 centimorgans that we have in common. I think over 14 segments, whatever that means. I'm not even sure what that means, but that's closer than we should be. So I started investigating. I went back on his father's line, and we're connected twice by 2 different paths to the same ancestor. Brother and sister married brother and sister, not blood related, but one brother and sister of one family married another brother and sister of the other family, both of which I'm related to. And then the interesting part was he had a second tree with a lot more people. So I checked that one out and found out that there's a direct line on his mother's side to an ancestor on my mother's side. So we're related by 3 different paths back to the same ancestors.
Yep.
So that's why we show closer relationship than we should be 3rd or 4th cousins, but we're more like 1st or 2nd. Is that explained? I mean, it explained it to me.
Yes.
At least I think that's the interpretation.
Yes, that's pedigree collapse. And I'm going to show you an example here in a little bit of how it fits in my family.
Yeah,
On the
that's
one side.
Well, it was, there were a lot of kids, a lot of families, they live close together. So a lot of intermarrying goes on, not necessarily blood relatives,
Right.
but sisters of one, sisters and brothers of one family, married sisters and brothers. But it was fascinating to me that we're not only related 2 different ways on our dad's side, but also on our mother's side.
And that's what ancestries and some of them are going to have to figure out, is how to be able to identify all the different relationships. They just put the one first cousin twice removed or whatever, but there's a few more in there for some of us. Okay, Nicole. Hi. You're not Nicole?
I am. I was wondering, I didn't know if I was unmuted. I'm actually at work, so if the phone rings, I apologize. I'll mute myself after I'm done talking. I have tested with Ancestry. My mom and my great uncle actually tested with National Geographic way back when. So their results I transferred over to Family Tree DNA.
Cool.
I have tested 2 great aunts, a great uncle, my grandma, my mom, my dad, me. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to use Y-DNA to find some missing ancestors, and I am not having any luck. I don't know how to use it. We have lines that just drop off. So that's like, for instance, why I tested my great uncle. So I'm looking for his second, 2 times great grandpa, my 4th. So I tested him instead. I just don't know how to narrow.
Okay. And you've done the autosomal tests.
I didn't do Ancestry for those 2. I know I can through Family Tree, but I think what I did was the Y and the mitochondrial with Family
Okay.
Tree. I haven't paid the other fee to get the autosomal through Family Tree.
You probably want to.
Okay.
That's one of the things you'll probably want to do.
And I tested a brother and a sister for that mystery, hoping that that would help if they have matches in common. Is that a thing?
Yeah, you're going to have matches in common if it's brother and sister because they're going to be super close. But you did the Y or the autosomal for that?
I haven't paid for the autosomal yet, but I made sure I got they're pretty old. So I just went
Okay.
ahead and got the DNA sample.
Right, which is
I-
good.
At some point.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Bewinga. I'm in San Diego, California. My family's from northeastern Kentucky, and I'm a Pennington. And we're trying to identify a third great grandparents, and we're having major problems. I'm an identical twin. So my identical twin and I both did the Ancestry autosomal. And I love the last class, and I went in and met with my one cousin, very involved in Durango. We took a road trip, and he and I were discussing, he wasn't sure that my second great grandfather's sister was really his sister. So that was good because I found like a third or fifth cousin that happened to be a direct line to this sister. And so I went in there and I did some investigation, and I'm really happy to say I found out that 3 of her children were DNA connected to my sister, my cousin, and to my nephew. All 3 lines.
There you go.
And she had 3 children that were connected to all different ways. So that was just like, oh, I was so excited. I said, well, they got to be brother and sister. Well, I'm not sure, but anyway,
You're on the road to
made
it.
me feel so good that it was able to do all the sharing and stuff. And then that got me going, and I actually uploaded all my DNA to Family Tree DNA because my mother in 2006 and one of her cousins she did a MtDNA, and her cousin did a Y-DNA. And then her other cousin, who is still alive, did the Y and the MTA, thinking that, oh, I connect to all of them. Well, my question is, what happens with these people in 2006? Did Family Tree fall off the dime or something? But I have my mother's password and everything. I uploaded it. I got my cousin who recently took the test, but I didn't get my mother or her other first cousin to come up. And I have their test results here. I don't have their data, but I have both their certificates and everything. So I am concerned about that. And then I also uploaded to MyHeritage because the Pennington pedigree has all gone on and uploaded up to MyHeritage. So I thought, oh, I'll find all kinds of good stuff there. Well, that was a joke. There's nothing there. I couldn't find a thing. But one other good thing is, but I'm kind of sad about it, but is my one cousin who's still alive, who did both of them on Family Tree, the M and the Y, he had an X chromosome with me. But he happens to be the only one out of 398 people that's an X chromosome. So I don't know that I thought S chromosome might be an answer, but I'm not sure. So that's where I am.
Okay. Alice?
My name is Alice Bryce Bratcher, and I've been doing research maybe since I was 18 years old. My father got me started, but my aim is trying to document things for my nephews, but I'm working a lot with the Big Y 700. I had that on about 3 or 4 family names, but it's trying to get a professional genealogist to compile the results so it's understandable. I mean, I haven't learned how to get all the results, but there's been 2 of them who've got results. And also I try to go in on Ancestry, and I might find one name that I'm looking for, and there's 200 trees with that name, but their grandfather, there might be 4 different grandfathers for that person. So I'm trying to contact these people. Let's try to come up with settling on one. And then my Rice has said that where he was born in Shire Minton, well, the ancestry genealogist said, well, there's no Shire Minton whatsoever in England, and all these hundreds of years since 1824, they've always said Shire Minton of Bristol, England. So I'm trying to contact the people that we think it might be Shire Hampton or another town, but you know, it first got documented in 1824 in a book, and it's just handed down, and apparently all these years nobody caught on that there's no town in Shire Minton. So I'm just trying to correct what I can or contact the people, so we won't have 3 different great-great-great-grandfathers for the same person, you know.
Yeah.
That's my goal, is trying to contact where have different parents. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, good. Okay, James?
Yes, this is Mary
Oh.
Delaney.
We got Phyllis and James mixed up here.
Just like Phyllis and John, yes.
Right.
Yes, I'm the wife of James Hodge.
Okay.
And I have done my ancestry, my DNA on Ancestry. But I just watched the July 24th program. So I haven't done the assignment from last month or caught up to speed. So I'm kind of catching up.
That's fine. Like I said, we're going to really focus on it more next month, but I want to give people plenty of time to try to play around with it so that, you know, they've got good, solid questions when we get together.
Right.
On it. Okay, Rebecca, or whomever belongs to the name Rebecca Barnes.
Okay, there we go. Hey
There.
there. My name is Rebecca, and I'm from Pike County, Kentucky. My dad is from Louisville, and I guess I started on this journey when I was about 13, and my dad's father passed away in 1951 when he was only 6 months old, and he knew nothing about his dad and nothing about our Barnes family. And so ever since then, which has been 30 plus years ago, I've been doing this research and got started on the DNA part probably around 7 years ago, but really didn't do a whole lot with it. I've tested through 23andMe, Ancestry, put it on MyHeritage, tested my son, And my dad and mom have decided that they're going to test too. So that's exciting. And I guess I got bitten by the bug and now I'm addicted. So
There you go. It's very addictive. Okay. Sherry, you're going to give me the ability to share screen.
You should
Good.
have it.
All right, wait. Minimize that. I'm not sure where to put this. Do you guys see this screen here with Harkness Jet and Carolyn McQuinn?
Yes.
All right. Pedigree collapse. The match, 143 people, second to third cousin, DNA 110 centimorgans across 10 segments. All right. This is my Harkness, the one that has multiple spellings for his name, and Caroline. They're over here, but you see these green, can you see the green names,
Yes.
surnames?
Yes.
These are all in my lines too. Go back to the Lucases, the Spencers, which is a different set of grandparents. So we're talking 1, 2, 3, at least 4 other relations through that line that go further back. That's why you end up sometimes with what, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, was describing, was it Kathy?
It's
describing
Joyce.
Joyce
Yeah.
described. I'm looking at Joyce and saying Kathy. Yeah,
It's all
sorry.
right. That's all right.
But it's the same sort of thing. These lines go back. If I take this one further back, she doesn't go. But Liberty Bowman, Stephen Bowman, Harkness Jet. If I take you to my tree, and we'll go this view. And we'll go back to me. And you can see Spencer's, Lucas's, Bowman's go back through both of these lines, 2 different Bowman lines. Bowman line through there, Bowman line through the Jets. I picked the wrong Jet. There we go. Harkness Jet, Stephen Jet, McQuinn's, and then of course the Spencer and Lady Diana's line that has not made that connection yet, but we're working on it. You know, they have Bowman's in their line as well. So you've got, with the Spencer line, I have got, I wish this would go a couple more generations out without having to pull it all out. Because I have got at least, I've got 3 lines that go back to Joseph Spencer, to this dude right here. And that makes it a little challenging when you're getting into the trying to figure out where the matches fit in. And what I'm discovering too is my Prussia and German line, which is right in here, is starting to show some of the same things, cousins marrying cousins, that sort of thing. So that is something to, when you look at them, don't rule anything out. And remember that just because you have whatever you have of the matches, whatever the centimorgans are, say 18 people, not the centimorgan, 212 centimorgans. This is not saying that they're all on one side. This could be on both sides of the family. And it could be involving several different people. So you do have to kind of be careful when you're going in. And see, I've got, here's a Watkins married a Crawford. And I've got distinct lines back to Archibald Crawford and Benjamin Watkins way back. But here they married, Watkins and Harold. So it does make it a little more challenging when you get into that with the autosomal. Okay, what else did I have? Oh yeah, okay. And this one, and then we'll get started in our Y and MT. This dude popped up the other day. And remember, we talked about looking at all you can around the thing, because he has a public tree, which is private, which has one living person on it. And that person has nothing. So that's the only clue I have right there, right? Leave me on the brick wall. Well, let's go a little bit further. Let's just take a look at his profile. Look what I got here.
Mm-hmm.
Born to, gives me the parents, where,
Yes.
Michigan. I was a Marine Corps, 91. He married on 1996. His children. So I've got a little bit more to work with, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't know what side of the family he's on, because I was born in Michigan, but my paternal side's from Kentucky. Look at the ethnicity results. England, Northwestern Europe, Scotland. So what does that point to? The Kentucky side, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's, ethnicity, right, here we go. Okay, this is showing Scotland in Europe, but look down here too, on the shared communities.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is showing Ohio. Well, some of my Michigan people were down in northern Ohio area. My one line from the maternal side that is a brick wall was right down here in Ohio, Miami County, Ohio. That could be a link. That's something I'm going to have to keep in mind. But when I look at this, the other one, early Tennessee and northern Tennessee, that's a much stronger area of hitting. Kingsport, Lexington, the whole area of eastern Kentucky where my paternal side is from. So I've got clues to work with, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? This is going to be my challenge, because I'm not finding a whole lot on him. And if he was a military brat, because he was in the military, it might be even a little more challenging. But you can find those other clues. And that's what we want to do, is we want to look for those other things. I just happened to think, well, let's see what it's like on his profile. And I was shocked, because a lot of them don't have anything. They just have when they last logged on.
Linda,
Yes.
when I went in and did that with my cousin when I went to Durango, there were actually, I pressed some of those like people that you had on there. There were like 5 people on that thing. And, you know, they actually turned out to be relatives, like people. My cousin was so impressed because it looked like all of a sudden we came up with our 4th great grandfather on one side. John Webb came up and he just went flipped out. But if you go in there, you know, those little dots that were on there,
Yeah.
it actually, I pressed those and it came up with people that we really were related to. Like if you go on there.
Yeah.
you
And
press
this is
2
like
or
the
1,
number. Yeah. The number.
right.
Yeah.
And I actually came up with people.
Well, Brett Watkins is right there is a common ancestor right there. Brett Watkins. He's my great grandfather.
Yeah.
Go.
He
So-
was the one that got severed by a train.
Yeah.
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 So that was really interesting, I thought, and it really, then my gosh, I had quite a few that came up.
And see, this gives us a common ancestor now to look for.
Yeah.
And that's close. We're talking great grandfather. So there are ways, there are different tools, and each of the sites have got different things that we can work with to do it. It just takes getting in there and playing around.
Mhm.
and just hunting for it. Anybody got any questions or want to share anything else on that before we move back to the other? Do we
I
move
just
to
have
today's
one
topic?
question. I just have one question. Linda, I was having problem putting notes on mine. And I'm paying, $200 every 6 months. So I think I have the full ancestry, but how come I can't put notes on? Could you do a note? We did that last time and I couldn't do it.
Okay, are you putting a note on the DNA match?
No, on the person. Like if I went into Mark Spencer and I wanted
Okay.
to put what his connection was to me, like first
Okay.
cousin once removed or something. I
Right
couldn't
up
do
here
that.
is add a note,
Add a note,
and it comes over here to the side,
right?
and you do it, and then you have to hit save.
Okay.
So we
and it-
say brother, and then you hit
Right.
save, and it
there it
should
came up. Okay, well, I'm
pick
gonna,
it up.
okay, well, I think I'm doing it right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, try it, and like I said, groups is a little bit different. It's kind of just identifying the groups.
Right.
But the notes is where you can add, which sometimes I've got one that was right above. I was looking for examples today, and I had one that was right above saying, this whole tree is messed up. These children were born 2 years before the parents were born. So we got to double check some of this information.
Okay.
And then I've taken it, a lot of them with down all the way down to, even questions I still have. I've got a line, but where did the stump name come from?
I think that's great. I'm gonna try to do that more often because every time I get into one, I have to reacquaint myself. And if I had
Right.
that there, it would really help me. So that note section, I think is fantastic.
I love the notes section, and I love the clues because then I can just click on here and say, which family exactly is this a part of? And it should tell me, but it's slow this afternoon. And some of them I've got, 3 different possible links and a star if I'm working on them a little more than some of the others. And don't forget the shared matches part of it too. Let's see. Well, we'll go back to go down here to one of the others that doesn't have much. Elaine, I know that it's an unlinked tree, but don't forget those shared matches. And you can also work with them backwards. And that's sometimes why I've got 2 or 3 different tabs on them, because I'll go through these sometimes, and ones that haven't been marked, I'll go ahead and mark them with where I think it is. Like this is paternal. These others seem to be the blue tab, which that's not showing very good right now. But my blue tab is Spencer Hobbs. So I could just attach the blue tab to this as a tentative. And I can look for, and then when I put in my notes, the specific relationship, it kind of lets me know what I'm working on. Is that making sense? Okay, any other questions? All right, then I'm going to stop sharing for the moment because I can't there's everybody back again. Okay, let's start with where they fall in the chapters of the book, just to have a starting place, and let's start talking about the Y chromosome. All right, does everybody understand that the Y DNA tests the father's father? And in order to be able to utilize it, you've got to come down. It's going to be the father's son, all the way down. Okay. The Y DNA, one of the main purposes is it does help provide a haplogroup. And the haplogroup can help rule in or out connections with that ancestor. It may or may not be the same surname you're trying for. Okay, is that making sense?
Can you go back a second? Because I'm having trouble. I said one of my cousins, I put it in and they come up with a haplogroup, and there are 6 different potential matches. So only under 12 of the tests, under 12 tests. And anyway, if it's a different haplogroup, can they be related? If it's not same, so there are 6 names that share the same 12, I guess the first 12, whatever they are, the SYSs or CYSs or
DYS.
DYSs, yeah, okay. So the
Okay.
first 12 are all the same. But they say, well, maybe you want to get the person that only did the 12 tests that matches yours entirely to get to do a 37 test or a 67 test. But
Okay.
if he's a different haplogroup, then would it be worth having that person do it? And I'm confused if the 12, what do they call them, groups or DOS is whatever that. What I got to give you my term.
Those
Markers.
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 Yeah.
Okay. If the first 12 markers are the same, how can they say this guy has a different haplogroup? Because he didn't go beyond 12.
Okay. When you start out with 12, right now 12 is, they don't even use that as a minimum anymore. They want you
Yeah,
to.
I understand that, but I'm just
Okay.
I just want to understand haplogroups.
Right. Haplogroups take the generations further back and tries to identify the distinct characteristics of.
Okay, we see that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. This is confidential. Everybody got that?
We
Confidential.
got that.
Okay. You're going into the Y-DNA matches. And they've changed it, haven't they? They've changed the viewing of it. Let's go back to this. There we go. Is this what you're used to seeing?
Well, that's what I see now, but I can't get, if I want to go back to the name, these are all the matches, but you want to have the same last name. And where's that little box where you put in the last name on this?
Okay, well, this is the thing. This is what we're talking about being cautious of. Okay. These test markers, they've actually changed the way it's shown, from the tables are shown. When you're looking at a genetic distance, the smaller the number, the closer the relationship. The problem with the Y-DNA is that can go back 1,000, 16,000, 20,000 years ago. Okay. You can't really predict exactly how far back that match goes. All right. So it could be, you could be relating, this 10 steps back could be 500 years ago that you're matching this person, because the Y consistently comes on down. Whenever there is a change in the markers, then there comes a difference in it. The haplogroup comes into play when you're looking at the ancestor you share the furthest back. Names are irrelevant in that respect. Okay. This is going more by what the markers show. For this one, EM35 is the haplogroup for this individual. Okay, and all of these are EM35. But if you'll notice, the surnames are different. You've got Eugene Mason, then you got Lafayette, then you got Shaw, then you've got Musson, which could be Mason. Okay, now this individual's last name is actually Colston today. If you've got one different in a different haplogroup, I'm not really sure why they're showing up there unless, are they showing up on this one or are they showing up in your matches?
They're
Which are
they're
almost,
showing up in the matches, but they also show up on that same screen.
okay, there's somebody in that line. The haplogroup's different. If the haplogroup is different, that is not that line ancestor.
Okay, so I shouldn't try to track down that person that did a 12 test, but he has a different haplogroup. But I don't. How do they know what the
Okay.
haplogroup is if they only did a 12 test and the 12 test is the same as my ancestor?
Right.
And
You don't pay attention to the 12 tests anymore. Okay. Because that's kind of like saying I took a DNA test. You're going to have a lot of mismatched. The algorithms are going to pull in and out people that aren't necessarily who you're connected to. You want to shoot for either a 35, I mean a 30, 25 or 37, 67. Actually, even now, 37, 67 or 111 or the big Y. Okay. That's narrowing down what they're looking at and getting more precise.
I understand that, but how do they come up with a haplogroup?
The haplogroup is.
How do you know what the haplogroups are for these people?
I don't want to explain it in a way that is more confusing. So let me see here. Basically what it does, it takes the results of what the test taker is showing and they're assigning it, each one numbers. So I think pages 100 and 102 kind of go into a little bit about haplogroups. 99, yeah, there's 99, 100. Because they take the markers on the string or the string of them and they look at the repeats on them. They come up with that particular string of markers. And those that match all the way back, you start out with an initial letter like E. They just randomly assign that. As the haplogroup gets smaller, let's see, I'm trying to think of who gives the best definition of haplogroups. Well, no, that's not doing that. Let's still not tell me what that is on DNA matches. No, we want to see. Like I said, I want to find a good official definition for you. That's your haplotree. Each time there is a mutation from the earliest line down, that is a change. Okay, so people who match all the way back to that ancestor of what they've assigned E, as they're looking at the studies down, and each time a mutation comes into play, which could be many years, any number of reasons, they're going to drill it down further and further to get closer and closer to being a relative of yours that you can match. Let's go to ISOG. Let's see if they give a good. Haplogroup. How about haplogroup? In the Y chromosome test, and each of the mutations they call a subclade. And even then, they're still not really giving you a good definition. The the haplogroups are different on MtDNA and Y-DNA. I'm sorry.
In the book, so in the book on page 100, 101, it talks about how haplogroups are assigned based on for the Y groups.
Okay, it's and the basic definition of a haplogroup is a genetic population group of people who share a common ancestor on the patriline or the matriline. So they share the same ancestor going all the way back. They give that a random letter to identify it. Then as they follow that ancestor down, each time there is a mutation or a change in it, they get these subclades and they will add like numbers to them. And you can mutate, which is kind of altering you know, the row of numbers that you saw in the results of 14, 16, 18. Let's go back to the well, let's get the actual STR results. Okay, when you get these actual DYS numbers, okay, each time they're comparing these same spots on the Y-DNA for everybody. Those that are starred tend to mutate more frequently than the others. So you have to view them a little bit differently. But each time there is a mutation, it's going to alter the number. It may come up one more, two more, one less. You know, you can see 13, 15, 9, 10, 0 on 425. Those were different ones. But if you look at the same ones, let's see, 439 is 12. Wow. All right, I haven't looked at this.
I had another quick question on that. If you go down to that top, I don't want to take too much time for everybody else, but how are there 12 there in that top line? The one on the right, there aren't 12. Are there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
Actually, this is the first 1 to 12, then 13 to 25.
But there are only 11 items there. That's what I was trying to figure
Right.
out.
It's a continuum. If this was strung out in one long horizontal line, it'd be together. Because see, this is markers 61 through 67 right
Excuse me,
here.
but if you count that top line, there are only 11, not 12.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. There's 2 right here. They're counting.
Looks
They've
like
got to
three.
be.
Yeah, go back up to
Oh
the
wait,
very top
1, 2,
line.
3, 4, 5. The 16 and 18.
But that's 3, 16, 17, and 18.
No,
So
just
how's-
16. It's just 16 and 18.
Ah, okay.
Well, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11. Yeah, 12. That's
Okay.
16
So-
and 18.
So it can be either 16 or 18, or does it have to be 16 and 18?
It could be 15 and 17. It could be, each one is kind of a different, this is showing
Okay.
the whole string.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Now, if you get into comparing it with somebody else's string, you're going to see those lined up with maybe 25 or 12 markers might do better. Let's see what that does. You'll be comparing with like the first 12 markers and stuff. They're going to be comparing those numbers and the results that you have when you get the results of somebody else's. And this is when you're going to be looking at it minutely. And so you'd have to get kind of permission from the other person to send them their STRs to look at on there. And then you compare what they look like on page. Do you have a book with you?
Yeah.
Okay. It is.
Well, I read that about 4 times.
Yeah, page 108.
Yeah.
Yeah. see, if you look at that first example of Alden, on 390, you see a difference. You see Thaddeus has 22, Thomas has Alden, has 23.
So they can't be
Okay.
related.
No, they can be related. What you do is you take whatever string it is, each time you see a change like that,
Mhm.
you count the difference between that change.
Mhm.
So that would be a genetic distance of 1 right there, because there's just one marker difference between 22 and 23. You go on over, and the next one you see is that 13 and 12, and that's a 1. Well, 1 plus 1 is 2, so that gives it a genetic distance of 2. Okay, is that making sense?
Yep.
That's what they're looking at when they're looking at the genetic distance. A genetic distance of 0, 1, and 2 have the potential to be traceable connections for your ancestors. You might be able to actually link to more common ones. They're going to be within the AT range, possibly. Or they could be back thousands of years. What you do with when you see a different haplogroup, you're looking at somebody different. The haplogroup should be the same as yours, because if it's a different letter, it's descending from a different ancestor. That could be the result of a non-paternal event. It could be whoever tested didn't quite have those results, but there's somewhere along the line that you're matching on something, which is interesting if it's, but forget the 12. That 12 is going to do that to you. It's going to be like a false positive. You can't rely on the 12. You want to go the higher up for the stronger matches.
I understand that.
So when you hit 67 or 37, they should all be the same haplogroup. But when you're looking on your AT matches and you see a haplogroup, if it's, for this one, if it's not an EM35, it can have all the subclades after it and still be it. That E is critical. Okay?
What do you mean? What do you mean E's critical?
It's critical for identifying that particular ancestor is who you're related to. Somebody else's ancestor could be C or R. R is a very common one. RM for males and stuff. It's very, very common. And that's a lot of the European ones, which they pull out. RM. I'm sorry, I got about half of a sinus headache, so it's getting part of that in the way. But the first letter determines the ancestor that it goes back to, even though they don't know the ancestor's name. So theoretically, the E or the J or whatever is kind of your Adam, in a sense. If you're going back to like Adam and Eve or the first man or whatever, that's kind of the one you're going back to. And then as the mutations occur over time, you may be one off from a match, but you can be related. The problem with that is it's not telling you if it's a brother relationship, a father-son, or all those other possibilities that it could be in a relationship. It's just showing that there is a relationship. So Y can confirm some things, but it can also identify things that cannot be easily confirmed. But it's more like supporting evidence in many cases.
Well, thank you.
I know it's clear as mud on that, but like my Spencer line, this one had different surnames. If I bring up,
How do you get the surnames there so that you got 100 different matches, but if you want to use a surname, how do you do that on this?
for your matches on this,
Yeah, you had all those matches,
okay.
and then
Oops.
where do you put the surname in?
The surname for those matches had come up as
But they're matching them by the Y-DNA, but if you want to put the surname in, that's another way to
right, another way to
separate
search it.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I spent an hour trying to figure out how to put the surname in.
Let me just I keep breaking up female, sorry. One of these days I'm going to have these totally memorized and know exactly who is who. All right, there's Michael, but he's the same sort of it. You go into the Y matches and you're wanting to
Home down on the person with the same surname.
you may not find someone with the same surname.
Well, let's
But-
say that there is. There's
Okay.
you got to find a place to put that in, and I couldn't figure out where to put it in.
In the search,
I put it in the search and it didn't do any good.
because that surname, maybe there's nobody there with that surname.
There was.
There was?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were,
You got all these names in there, okay? And then you want to put in the one surname. How do you do it?
you're on the Y. Let's see, here's the individuals. And you want to see if there's a particular surname?
I want to see the one with that has 67 markers that are similar to that each other, and that all have a surname of Woolsey, or all have the surname, a single surname, so that it gets rid of all the other ones without the different surname.
I don't know that you can do that on the Y.
Can, because I did it before, but I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, if I search and put
I don't
in,
want to take any more of your time. I'll contact the person that's in charge of the surname tree. And
Would
What-
sort by help?
oh, yeah, you could maybe filter. That might be it, the filter. Well, I lost it.
I'm only asking until it took me an hour, and I thought maybe you'd be able to do it in 30 seconds.
Well, see what you
Over
get for
there,
thinking.
On the right of the screen.
On the right of the screen, full sequence, test taken. Oh, all right. I know what you're looking to narrow some of it down, possibly.
Trying to narrow it down to a given surname, which is the surname I'm looking for. We have people that match
Exact
by
match.
all 12 or all 67 or whatever number you want to put in, but you want to get it to just those people that have that right surname.
Well, you can't. You got to be careful with that because of a possible non-paternal event
And that,
or
but if
non-parental event. Because just because they don't have the same surname does not mean that they are not a match.
That's not my point. I wanted to get the ones that had a certain name, a Howell surname, and there's 6 of them in that list that have the Howell surname.
Had the hell. So you want to, okay.
Then I wanted to be able to find out what their email address is so I can email them. And I could do it before, but now I can't do it. Maybe they've changed it.
They have made a recent change because it's not even allowing you to sort the match as much. Sort by.
I tried all 7 of those and I couldn't get anything to work.
Yeah, I think they must have. Name. Okay, let's try a name.
Put the name in and it didn't do any good.
That's it. Go into the search thing and go over to that little arrow that goes down and put name, and then put the name in you're looking for. And that will bring up somebody connected with that name. It should. It only brought up one, but that's in the 12 markers, so that could be.
Should be more if it's 12 markers.
Yeah, I
It's not
don't
working.
know. I'm going to have to explore that. Maybe I can find something by next time.
Sorry, I took too much time.
Okay. I mean, I apologize that I've not played with these new versions yet. What questions does anybody have on the Y?
I have a question.
Okay.
I am trying to track my great grandparents on my father's side, and I was wondering, my dad's going to be doing the Y DNA test, and how exactly, like, do you know? Say you get it down to like a certain like last surname, and all the surnames, of course, would be the same. So would you just use centimorgans then, just to be able to figure out, like, if it was a Smith, you know, which Smith brother it might be?
You are not likely to be able to determine which brother or which father-son relationship it's going to be. You'll have
Okay.
to do that through ATDNA.
Okay. And what is
I
that?
know.
What's it called? Is
Autosomal. It's
got
the
it.
autosomal DNA.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. See, this is my first cousin, and the last name is really Holton.
Okay.
And if I hit the search, we're not really coming up with any Holdens. In fact, over the years, the most common one seems to be Lassiter. So when I get going back into it, and this could be a non-paternal event, it could be an adoption, misattributed parentage, whatever, but it could also be, because this goes back so far, it could be their origins, their ethnicity estimates of where they were. If you go and look at the different customs of the different countries, and we've talked about this before, but like Germany, were villages and stuff there where the land became a hot commodity. They kept dividing it up with the kids or whatever. Well, it got to where they wanted to keep it in the same family. So there were cases where usually the woman took the husband's name. But if it was a condition over there in Germany in a small village and they didn't want to lose their land to that other family, the husband would take the wife's name. And so he would pick up her name and thus change the last name. So going back in and looking at patronymics and types of naming patterns and how they did them could make a difference in what the last name was. But as you can tell here, there's nobody that, I mean, Lassiter comes up more than some of the others, but even then, you know, it's still questionable as to 6 steps. I don't really have that many. Well, the closest I have is 5 steps. So right now I'm not going to have much luck with doing anything with the Y.
And what would you say the best Y test is? Because I know there's a bunch of different ones. Which one is the best to do if you're looking for someone, you know, closer to you in relation?
Well, really, actually, right now they're looking at the big Y is probably the best one to take
Okay.
because it drills down so much, and I've not broken over yet. I'm getting ready to break over to get one, but
Okay.
I've not gotten one yet. But it goes even in more detail and gets more specific.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but if you're don't want to go that, you just want to rule somebody in or out that might be a potential. If you're trying to like identify a grandfather or something, and you want to bring the Y down, then you might want to go like 37 or 67,
Okay.
just to see if it's the same haplogroup and stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody got any other questions on this?
Linda, why would you take a Y-DNA test?
Oh, I wouldn't take it.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry.
No.
I thought you said you were going to take it. Okay.
No, I was going to upgrade one of those. I managed to take it.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the Y. I can't take the Y-DNA test.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I tested my father. He has 2 exact matches and 2 a distance of 1.
Mm-hmm.
I tested him at 37 markers. There are, I think, only 4 matches that have tested at 111. None of them are the closest distance. They're all farther down in his list. of matches. Should I test him further? Go all the way to 111? He doesn't have he only has, let's see, I don't know, 14 matches. I mean, with only 14 matches, is that going to be beneficial?
It's going to make the matches more accurate,
Okay.
is what it's probably going to do,
Um,
because you don't know the time frame for some of these. So the big Y helps get it down to as many, tries to identify all the mutations and that kind of stuff to get the haplogroup as detailed as it can. And if you look on this one, there's haplogroup of RFT101944.
mhm.
That's really narrowed down, to mutation differences, closer relationship.
Okay, so when it says exact match, I mean,
It's,
that
you're looking
doesn't-
at genetic distance.
okay,
Is what you're looking at. And
Okay.
what it's showing is you how many of those, when you look at that string of 30 or 67 markers, there's 5 points of difference in them.
Okay.
It could
And-
be one, it could be, just three of the markers, but it could be 2 distance in one and 2 in the other and 1 in the last one, whatever.
and do they still offer the big Y? I
Oh
thought-
yeah, that's the main one now.
Okay,
It's a little pricey.
okay, that's why probably why I
Yeah.
didn't do it.
It's a little pricey. They got a special going on right now with $50 off, but still a little pricey.
Okay, all right.
But-
So that's
Yeah.
standard now,
Well, it's looking at more of the genome, so it's getting a whole lot better picture of it. Each one you start out 12 and you go 25, you're looking at more and more markers. Well, the full sequence is looking at a whole lot more detail and comparing a lot more of the markers to each other.
and if
Or
I do
together.
that, could he lose exact matches if I upgrade his test?
I've not really seen the results of that yet. I don't think that he would lose the matches because if there's a strong enough match there. But if he loses the matches, then it's probably a possibility that that's where it stops and it's going to be further back prior to you're going to have less mutations kind of the farther back in some ways, forward
All right.
back.
Perfect. Thanks.
So does everybody understand that if you've got a grandfather on the maternal side that you want to compare with somebody who you think is a grandfather, that you're going to have to get that grandfather's son, the son all the way down to test for the Y DNA to determine that, and that can rule in or out, because if that other one comes in at a different, and the same thing with the other one you think may be the grandfather, you get them a Y DNA all the way down, then different haplogroup, they're not going to be connected. Does that make it muddier or help clear things up a little bit? Any other questions? Yeah.
Linda?
Yes.
So on this screen here, you have this on the 700 group, that first one with that R-FT101944. Is that a subclade of the R-M269?
No, it's of the R. Well, it's the subclade of the R, but they found out at the next point where they put in the F and the M, there was a mutation, and they were able to
Okay,
take
so
that
those-
further down. Yeah. What you're
Okay,
doing
so
is you're
that-
drilling down.
Yes, I understand that. But it's like you're showing more detail than what you would normally see in an R-M269,
Yes.
or is this actually something different than an R-M269?
Well, it's different because it's going to come under R. When you look at the big haplogroup tree on the ISOG thing, they showed the big, you look up haplogroups on there and play around with that, they're going to show you the big trees.
Right.
Get that up. And that's kind of how you can take it down to show you the main tree of where people fall into. And this is constantly evolving and changing. But as you can see, it starts out, you know, you've got L, L, V, and then they'll start delineating between that when the changes are that these people have the LL41 going on down, and it just works its way further down into detail. So you get down to
Okay.
like the R, and you have got, they give you good details. I mean, go in and play on the ISOG and it will help explain things a little bit more. But it shows identical SNPs that were discovered separately are listed in alphabetical order, not necessarily in the order of discovery, and just depending on what group did it at the time. But that's where you
Okay.
see different ones. And the same thing is going to be for the MT haplogroup, but it's going to be different because it's going to go down to the primary female, the Eve part of it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are you kind of ready, totally confused and ready to move to the MtDNA? I can't hear you and I can't see you. Okay, so MtDNA. Y'all know where MtDNA comes from, right? The Y comes from the egg yolk and the MT comes from the egg white. Does that make sense? Nobody's speaking. Can you hear me?
We're still
Yes.
here. We can hear
Okay,
you.
okay.
We can hear you.
We're
Yes,
thinking.
it makes sense for me.
I can't even see, for some reason, I can't see people either. The way the screen went and, wait a minute, let me see if that will do it. Well, let me make that bigger. There we go. Now I can see people again. It's kind of hard to judge expressions and stuff when I was not being able to see everybody.
We can
Okay.
hear you. We're just totally confused.
What are you confused about?
I'm just all right now. My brain is trying to absorb it.
The thing is, these are a little bit more complicated in a way, but you don't use them. These are more like confirmation tools to either confirm a theory or reject a theory in a way. It can show a relationship, but it's not going to show you the exact relationship.
The one line in my husband's family that I really would like to go back on the Y-DNA, there's no descendant alive to take a test. That's the problem.
All right, then what you do is work your way back up to that tree, look for a sibling of that person or
We don't know
child
if
of
he
that
had
sibling.
any. He was raised in an orphanage. We don't know if he had any siblings. We have a little bit on the father. We have absolutely nothing on the mother. We don't know if there were any siblings. He had 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys, and the 2 little boys died young. So we don't have another male that we can connect him to.
And the little you have on the father, do you know if he had any other kids?
We don't know.
Don't
There's no
know.
sign of any.
Well,
Possibly,
how far back is that? How far back is that?
This is my husband's great grandfather. He died in 1918, I believe. He was born in 1855. We know that much. We know he was in an orphanage.
Okay.
And we need to try to find,
Autosomals.
yeah.
You want to go with autosomal looking for that.
Okay.
That's the where you want to go looking for, narrowing that down to candidates.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where autosomal comes in. Now let's go back to MtDNA. MtDNA, put your head a little more crooked because the Y was simple in the sense of son, 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 son. Okay. when you're thinking of MtDNA, you're not thinking of me taking an MtDNA and getting my paternal grandmother's DNA, looking for a match, okay? It goes mother's, 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 mother, or daughter, 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 daughter. Same sort of thing. But you've got to go that straight line of the mother. I can't go from me to look for my paternal grandmother through MtDNA. It has to be my mother, her mother, her mother's mother on back. Does that make sense? Now that's going to be the same sort of thing with, now this is what I'm used to looking at. So they haven't changed the MtDNA yet. I've got a genetic distance, but this could be 16,000 years ago. But it's the closest one I've got, because my genetic haplogroup or MT group is K2B1, which if you actually look on the map, that is a very small section there from in Africa, just up a little bit. It's one of the smaller sections that go back through there. But you're definitely not going to have a consistency in surnames with the mother's 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 mother, because marriage and stuff like that. And if anybody can pronounce this name, more power to you. Kalageropoulos.
Kalageropoulos.
Something like that. But as you can see, that my mother's side is primarily Eastern European, but it does go back to what it tells me when I'm looking at the matches, Croatia. But finding a match and working on the details, we don't know how far back this goes. So, you know, when you're doing something like looking for King Henry and his thing and bringing that further down, that can help rule in or out a relationship connection, but not necessarily what the relationship is. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have it because who knows what they may do with it further down as far as getting closer. Right now, they do their full sequence per se is the H1, HVR1, HVR2 in the coding regions. That's the top of the line that they have now and have had for a while now. But you can work with the matches sort of the same way, but again, it's going to be hard. We have no idea how we're connected. Just somewhere along the line, we're connected. So what questions do you have on MtDNA?
I don't have a question, but I would point out that this one does have a place that you can put in the surname.
Yes.
And
this is the old style.
Yeah. The other one didn't have a place you could put the surname in, or at least if you did, it didn't work when I did.
Right. I bet this will probably change too, because Family Tree is trying to update their stuff. But yeah, that's what you were looking for. And I couldn't was looking for on there as well, because you could. But I was used to, it was a whole lot easier to read this for me than it is to read what was on there now. But this is showing this, you know, genetic distance, same sort of thing, except it's on the maternal line. Okay. What questions do you have on this one? Did you read the King Richard's article thing? Did it make a little bit of sense?
Yeah.
You follow it through, but they made it look so easy. Just like watching Who Do You Think You Are? So it looks a whole lot easier than it really is to go down 13 generations and stuff like that to identify these people. Okay, any other questions on this?
Well, when do you use this? Who would feel that they had to have a autosomal DNA unless you're specifically looking for a grandmother or a great grandmother or something like that?
Exactly, just about haplogroups is kind of what you would use for. If you had two women that you thought, you know, say a man had married twice and you were trying to identify which woman was actually the mother of your ancestor, then that could help you distinguish that if the other one would be a different haplogroup. Okay, so it's nice to have these and people do them, and every now and then you do come into a question of this could provide the answer when you're looking at it and get it done and get the specific haplogroup. And Family Tree does give you the actual haplogroup. 23andMe gives you an estimated haplogroup. So it might not go all the way down as far as that other one did. And notice, unlike some of the other examples we saw, mine only goes to K2B1. So then, so far it's stopped, it's not mutated. But it could take thousands of years to have a mutation. It just depends. So that's when you get really into the nitty-gritty stuff. For the first 5 to 6 generations, AtDNA is the primary one. But this one can help answer other questions. Any other questions on this?
Yeah.
All right, what about the xDNA? That one's clear as mud too, isn't it? All right, those of you that read the book, did you see the link to Genealogy Junkie? Ah, Kathy did. It's got a couple of charts.
The video gal sent me there. The
Yeah.
video we did on X. That was really good.
It's good. What I like about this is this will show you the X chromosome is, we receive 50% from each parent of all but the sex chromosomes. That 50% is going to be either an XX or an XY. Okay. When it's a female, the father is passing down an X, right?
Yep.
So you can get the female line through that X. Now, when the X and X is passed down, the double X, a lot of times there's a recombination on it. But the male line is coming down from the male, but it's only going to come to that first child. Then he loses it. My son has my xDNA, but any of his children will not have it because they will get their mother's xDNA. Does that make sense? So if you fill in your chart, and what I really like about these charts is they are workable to where you can actually go in and edit and put the names in. And I would encourage you to go ahead and do it. And like someone said earlier, very few X things. One thing to remember about the X marker thing, the separate column, is that you want to look at the larger centimorgans as opposed to the smaller ones, because the larger ones, you want to work with the larger ones because you get better results that way. But if you start with, there's one for male and one for female. So if I started with myself and just put my parents in and grandparents and went through, then I could get information regarding the people in pink from my father's side that he may have ended up passing down, that he got from his mother, which she got from her mother, which she got from her mother, which she got from her mother. So you see this kind of goes a mitochondrial line of mother's 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 mother in that sense. But when it comes to the AT autosomal, the other genetic factors in it, the other chromosomes, it could involve what she inherited from either of her grandparents. Is that making sense? A little bit? Clear as mud again? Now, let me see if I can put them both up side by side. Is this giving you a side by side view?
Yes.
Okay. And what I like about these two, you can see the father. So if my son did it, he could get an X for me, for my grandmothers, great grandmothers, that line on up. Okay. Again, these can be helpful if you're working on looking at those lines. In a roundabout way, all three of these, the Y DNA, mtDNA, and the X chromosome, are additional tools, almost like indirect evidence. They can prove and identify that, yeah, you're related to them, but how, they're not going to be able to get that specific yet.
Yeah, Linda, that's what I found, that I got this X chromosome from my one cousin, but it goes nowhere because his mother and my grandmother were sisters, but they had different mothers. They did not have the same mother, they had the same father. But obviously I don't know, he's got a huge X chromosome that I match with. Which I'm trying to figure this out, how I've got to do a
Okay.
chart.
Right. Yeah, do the chart here, because it could be that he actually matches you through, even though they had different mothers, he matches you through the same mother that you do.
The same mother. Okay.
Well, I mean, he had different mothers, but
Did have different mothers.
yeah, different mothers.
My mother's mother was the sister to
Right,
his
the sister.
but they were half sisters, and they did not share the same mother.
They shared the same father. So
Correct.
what the father passed down in the X went there.
I guess so. I
Yeah.
got to do that chart. And then would that help me with the father? No, because it kind of dies.
Well, it dies, but then again, if you're looking at matches, where those matches fall into place, that could be working with others, may not necessarily help with the father, but it might help with cousins, which could indirectly come back to identifying,
Okay. All right.
answering some of the questions.
Well, I did look at this chart, and I did went to that junkie, and it is quite nice. That's a
Yeah.
nice site.
And I like, because it gives you the amounts, 50%, 25%,
Right.
because keeps that in mind, that you're only able to receive up to that, theoretically, that average. And so you could get 25% from your grandmother, who, if there were no recombinations, theoretically, you could get a strand of DNA on one of the chromosomes with no changes at all, and just totally comes down all the way without any recombinations. Now, that's not that common necessarily, but it's not ruled out either. And so this could maybe, rule some in and rule some out, but it gives you another avenue to look at. And I would encourage you to go ahead and complete this for yourself, as far as whichever one it is, and then another one for maybe the next line up, or whatever line you're looking at, to see how they would fall into it.
Well, my sister's coming this afternoon, and my twin and I do not have the same DNA.
Right.
We're identical twins, and we've been tested at SC, and we've done USC and all this stuff, and it did come out different. So I'm waiting to now have her come, and we're going to upload it and see what happens here. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
because she may have something that could help clarify it.
different. I don't know.
Yeah.
Curious, how many markers do you differ from your twin sister? That's
Well,
that's
that's what
bizarre.
I'm trying to, I want her to come here and put it on her computer so she gets it,
Okay.
so we can put it together. And as I understand, if we're both on family, we're all both on Ancestry, we upload to Family Tree, and then we check our markers, we should be able to see.
Yeah,
see
there,
that.
there could be, I mean, you can never say never. You can never say, you can't always say always, and you can never say never because there's always exceptions. But for the most part, yes. But there have been, like I showed you my uncle, there was a little bit of difference in the centimorgan thing on Ancestry.
Yeah. Well, my
So,
sister comes up with different ancestors than I do in some
yeah,
cases.
which is more indicative of a difference there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So next time, she's not coming till this afternoon, but next time I'll be able to report on,
Good.
maybe even show you a picture of what the difference is.
That would be awesome.
So I'm hoping she gets, I get a feeling because I did mine first. It seems like they're really upgrading and she has more stuff on hers than I do.
It might be because they've changed it. Well, also there was the chip change that was in, what were they, about 4 or 5 years ago, where 23andMe, I think, was the first one to update their chip and look at a larger part of the genome.
Okay.
And then the others have kind of done that. So that might skew some of the results a little bit as well. There's so
Well,
many factors to consider.
yeah, I was hoping she'd get here before this afternoon, but
Okay. Has this helped at all? This is one of those that you can spend a lot of time on, but it really comes down to if you're working on a specific problem, utilizing it to rule people in or out. Kind of like the early DNA test where you are the father or you are not the father. You know, it kind of runs along those lines. Any thoughts? Is everybody still with me?
Still here.
Yep.
Still here.
Okay, good. Any questions about this?
I'm going to have to do a lot more reading and a lot more studying to get this clear in my head. I don't really have enough information to ask a question at the moment.
Right. All right. How many of you have ever heard of family tree webinars? Have
Don't
any of
think so.
All right, Google family tree webinars. I think it's like $49 for a year. They show webinars every week. And I think it's every week, every month, every week, whatever. They show them regular basis and they're free for 7 days. And then if you join, you have access to all those webinars. They have got some really good DNA webinars on there to kind of help explain things. And for me, sometimes I have to hear it 2 or 3 different ways from 2 or 3 different people before it really sinks in.
Okay.
And
That
that
sounds
can,
like a plan.
and you know, I mean, and they have all sorts of webinars for all kinds of methodology. I mean, studying England, Scotland, Ireland, German. I mean, I can't even tell you how many webinars they have on their site, but I've been a member for several years now. And sometimes you can't always get in there within 7 days of it being free, but you can, if you're a member, join it, you can access those at any point in time.
Okay.
And some of them have excellent handouts. So I would do it. They've got a series that covers like the DNA basics of just the ATY, MtDNA and stuff. And that one, you know, might clarify something that wasn't done. They've got some that focus on like haplogroups or ethnicity and stuff. So I would strongly recommend those for getting something
Okay.
different.
You can find a lot of those videos also for free on YouTube. You
Yes.
have to Google,
Yeah,
you know, DNA, that sort of thing.
I will check that out. Thanks.
I'd have to say those Roots Tech webinars that were suggested on the Y-DNA and mitochondrial were very short and really didn't add much.
Yeah, Diane Southard, who is a real bouncy one, she's got a lot of energy. She can sometimes break things down, and she's got some webinars on family legacy. And I have noticed, though, that they have started putting up some of them shorter ones too. They're just 5 or 10-minute ones.
The ones that were referenced for us were about 3 minutes long, I think, and they didn't didn't cover much.
For me, in looking at all of those webinars, those were some of the closer ones that kind of came to having something really good to offer. It's something that kind of has to grow on you in some ways.
Now, my local genealogy society has this Christine Cohen once in a while, and then they save them and we can look at them again. And I feel she's really pretty good. And I watched one like a year ago, and it was really very good. So if you can get on YouTube and see her, I think she's isn't she with Ancestry, Christine
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen some of her YouTube videos.
The barefoot genealogist.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
good.
I've seen some of her videos. Yeah.
And then Blaine has some on family tree webinars and stuff as well that you can watch. And Blaine, for me, he clicks. The way he explains it, it clicks for me. But there's one guy on there, bless his heart. I go to sleep every time I start watching him. And it's not that he's boring. It's just, it's dry enough to where I just kind of lose it. But, and they also show you, give you more detailed webinars on using DNA Painter and, some of the other tools out there.
That's what happens to me when I start reading the book. Every time I start reading it, I fall asleep.
Yeah. Like I said, sometimes I have to visually see it. I have to plot it down. And I'm still, even sometimes relationships with people, I'm having to put down grandmother and put the great grandmother right above them and, right in the order to which they make sense. Because it can get confusing. And Sherry knows that. We sat in here the other day going, now, which one was the grandmother, the aunt, and which aunt was?
A lot of repetition. I would forget every 5 minutes. So.
And so next time we're going to look at, possible brick wall solutions, but also bring in the one you've been working on or the one you want to work on if you've not found one yet. And then we can go around and throw it out there. And then sometimes 2 heads are better than one, just like a research problem on regular genealogy on the paper trail. Sometimes if you sit and talk to somebody and voice it out loud, even if they don't tell you what it is, it may cause something to click in your mind, give you somewhere to look that you hadn't really thought about.
Linda, where would you go? I have like 2 DNA tests from my mother and a cousin of hers, and they're both deceased. I have the kit numbers and I have the passwords, and I can't seem to get on to either one. And then they didn't come up on when I did this uploading. Who do I contact to find out why these 2 are not on the family tree?
I would contact the help thing on family tree.
The help thing? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'd contact them through help and see if somehow they were lost. Now, sometimes when you upgrade, most of the time, ideally, you don't have to do anything but pay the extra money to get an upgrade. Sometimes if they didn't get big enough sample the first time around, or you needed more, you may have to redo it.
Well, they're both dead.
They're both dead, right? So
Deceased, so
hopefully they've got them somewhere. And, it may be a technical thing. And since they're both deceased, I don't know. They could probably tell you if they're doing it for privacy issues or whatever. They might want proof that you're descended from them or something like that, or something. But I'd contact them to see, because that way they can get with whomever would know.
And I wanted to ask, I haven't figured out how DNA Painter would help me at this point. Could you just, did you do DNA Painter as your chain of going on? But I don't, does anybody think DNA Painter is worthwhile at this point?
No comments. DNA Painter, it varies. A lot of it's going to depend on your working style. It can come in if you've got somebody's chromosomes and you're wanting to delineate of whether it was a male on the mother's side or the paternal side. DNA Painter can help you to map that out. For like, you can take specific chromosomes and compare two people and see where do they match. And if you know where they match, I know this one's on my mother's side and this one over here is showing up, on my father's side. Do they overlap? Where do they overlap? I mean, it gets more into really getting into deep down the chromosomes and saying, I match here.
Okay.
And that could work in regards to like the ethnicity and what was it? 23andMe give you the ethnicity chromosome breakdown. I think we looked at that on 23andMe. And that can tell you, that can help too if like, oh, okay, they match on chromosome 12 and the ethnicity for that is Eastern European. So that's my German side. So that's the paternal side or maternal side. It's going to be the clues like looking to see, for a long time, I didn't pay much attention to drilling down on the settlements and stuff in the US for the matches and stuff. But like you were pointing out with your cousin, when you start doing that and you look and oh, we match. Well, if they match these guys and they're from here, it's less chance of them matching the people in Michigan. So it depends on what your question is as far as what it's going to do to benefit you. And some people are just geeky enough to want to do it for fun. Okay, any questions or anything? Comments?
I had a couple quick questions about the assignment that you gave us that you're going to move on to next week or next month, because I have a dilemma on this second or third cousin that I was matched up with and have contacted, and she wants to pursue it. And I'm not sure, number one, whether I need to, and I'm not sure. Sometimes you said it's best not to pursue things because sometimes you look under too many rocks and you find something you didn't want to. But we're second or third cousins, just to give you an understanding of what I'm looking for. And we matched 283 centimorgans and 7 segments. So we should be relatively close. But I looked back in the trees and there is one name that's in both of our trees, but it's through a marriage. It's not a direct descendancy. I don't think. I just want to make sure. 2 questions in this regard. Is there some sort of form or something that you can put all these relationships on to figure out? Because my great-grandfather's son's wife is her great-granduncle's daughter. So is there somewhere where you can get a form that shows this so I can show you or somebody else how far this relationship is? And then if it's that far off, and if the relationship, the one person that we're both sort of related to is only by marriage, how could we share DNA unless there's something else, another connection somewhere else, like Joyce was talking about, found there were different connections that she through
Right.
other relationships. And I don't want to I told this gal I didn't want to pursue it until I was sure that we weren't going to look under too many stones, because it turns out that the people on both sides, although they didn't know each other, they actually came from the same community. And I don't know.
There might be a little secret there.
Yeah,
What's your
but my question is, I had two questions. One, can you advise me or us what kind of form we can use? I think you had showed one at one time, how these distant relationships, you can fill in little squares as to how they're related.
That is on DNA Painter. Can I share again, Sherry?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see. Screen one. Do you see we're seeing becomes doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
This Lucid chart is a program that you can have a bit of a free version to, and you can actually create that as far as if you were just wanting to align them up on blocks and stuff. I was going to see if they gave you
Something I can just print off.
Well, you could actually print it if you put the name in it, but you could create the father and then down and take the lines on down. DNA Painter has the chromosome chart.
Okay.
That is DNA Painter.
Now,
That's
so
what you
you put
showed us earlier.
dnapainter.com/tools/share.
Shared centimorgans.
Okay. I'm trying to write this down. dnapainter.com/tools/share.
CMV4, which is the fourth version of it.
And that'll give this. Now I don't know whether or not all these things are on that I could.
What was this? What was the centimorgans you shared?
283. And for what it's worth, it said we were second or third cousins. That's why I thought,
maybe it's any of these options right here. Could be a half great aunt.
But again, my question is, if the relationship is only through marriage, can we share DNA through that one person that we're connected to?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, it's going to be through somebody, but the connection may not be that one person. It may be somebody else that you hadn't really noticed or thought of yet.
So that's my main question. So maybe I don't want to pursue this.
Well,
Could the person that married be a cousin?
right. That's a possibility.
Back far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I encourage you to take your trees down from like at least the fourth, fifth, sixth generation. Bring them forward if you can, especially anybody you're working on, to as current as you can get it, because that's how you help to see if there's other common names in there that go back. But if it's the like this could be, looks like it could be a first cousin once removed, a full second cousin, first cousin twice removed, or half second cousin. Somebody may have, remarried or something like that. And it could be somebody, or it could even be a possibility of you match two people, one of them with 100 centimorgans and the other one with 183.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
But you say we couldn't be related DNA wise if the one person that we had in common is only by marriage.
There's going to be something there that you're related to that person with, but it may not be that person though. That's one person you would see in common with. Remember what I showed at the very beginning, that all these different lines that.
No, I understand. That's why I'm.
Yeah.
That this person had 4 kids and then they moved off to California and they were 3,000 miles away from everybody else and there was no intermarriage. So there must be another connection somewhere else perhaps.
Gotta be.
Yeah, there's going to be some sort of DNA connection, but finding it, it may be on somebody that neither one of you expected. Maybe there was somebody who was adopted at one point in time, and it's on one of your trees, the real name, but the, the adoption name was different. And so it's not popping up as how you're related.
Maybe the safest thing politically is not to pursue it.
Yeah, but if you're like me, you got to have your questions answered. That would drive me nuts if I couldn't find it.
You wanted to pursue it, but I wasn't sure. After hearing what you told us a couple of meetings ago about finding things that maybe were best not found,
Well, it depends on, again, that's a personal choice. And ethically speaking, you and the match that's wanting to pursue it, the person you contacted, have to be willing to, if we pursue this, we got to be prepared for whatever may result.
If I had 283 centimorgans, matching, I would be so excited. I would jump on it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I was excited until I saw that there's no direct line relationship that we could establish. And they came from a community where there were about 400 people that lived. And
they also moved awful far away.
Well, that's a relationship that I don't think is really connected. It's a marriage. As I said, it's a great grandfather's son's wife is the same as a great grand uncle's daughter, and
that goes back to the old song, "I am my own grandpa."
Okay, well, I just wanted to at least find out how I could draw this chart up so I could look at it and try to see. But it seems to me that there's no way that we're going to be related through that person.
Okay, have you taken your tree down to as much to the present as you can on all those people?
The ones out in California, they've all died, and I don't know how many kids they had. It's sort of hard. You got any suggestions how to find out where the kids are and how to contact them? I'd be happy to. I actually visited them when I was about 13.
Well, you they died, so look for an obituary, because that sometimes tells you where the kids are living if they're still in California or whatever. Marriages, look for look for any of the public records you can, even directories and stuff. Daggone, my address is on there now.
Directory, that's a good idea. Thank you. I don't use that. I didn't think of that because they were in Santa Barbara. I think that may be worth looking at. Okay.
Yeah. Just kind of get creative on, what could be out there that's public information. So, because you never know, there might be a family secret that one of the kids knows. And they may, sometimes you don't know it's a secret, especially if they've moved so far away. They may be aware of it, but never realized it wasn't known. My grandfather's half sister, she was aware, their family was aware of all of us, but we were not aware of them. So it, there can be all sorts of possibilities.
Well, it looks like we've run a little bit long today, but we're almost 10 after.
Oh, wow.
Could I ask one last question that kind of goes back to the beginning of this? Mm-hmm. And that is, someone said that, there are a lot of people that don't respond back to you. And one thing I found is some of these old-time genealogists that have been working on my family problem don't post anything. They don't post any information that's so important for people to see, because they continue to say things and add multiple trees on because they don't post something that's really important.
Right.
And two, some of them refuse to even recognize. I sent all this information to my second great grandfather's heir, because she was doing all this work to get my second great grandfather's sister's tombstone taken care of, never responded back to me, doesn't want to communicate with me. What is it with some people?
I don't know, but I think we've all had them. We all
Yeah.
met them.
Well, stop and think. There's only a few of us that are the family historians. I bet every one of us in here can start talking to some of our family members and their eyes glaze over real quick.
Yeah,
Amen to that.
I've got one nephew that might want to carry this on when I'm gone. I hope he does. That's about it.
Yeah, it just, my husband says, I know all I want to know about dead people. You go on and talk to them all you want.
I have a relative that she's quite a few years older than me, and she's done this professionally for a while here in Louisville. And we, because of social media, she found me, and she was talking about my grandmother, and that she had done a oral history thing with her brother. And she said, yeah, I wish I would have been able to get a hold of your grandmother. And I said, well, when did you talk to him? And she was like, oh, this has been about 5 years ago. I said, well, my grandmother just passed away last year. And she said, are you serious? And I said, yeah. She said, well, he said she'd been dead for a long time. And so basically what happened was my grandmother married a man that the family did not, they weren't too happy about it. And she, she got kind of put out of the family. And at the end of the little, she recorded it on cassette tape. This has been some time ago. He said, genealogy is from the devil. And
Oh,
but
goodness.
I have noticed over the decades that I've done this, that with some people, they're very open. They love to discuss it. And some people, they just feel like you're airing dirty laundry, and it may have been from 100 years ago. And, don't you dare talk about my great, 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 aunt twice removed, so
Right.
it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, I found some things that some mothers would just be horrified, but it's like, I can't change it. It's part of who I am. It is what it is. So just have to accept it and go on.
And
One of the first classes I ever took on genealogy, the guy said, you're going to find things out that you may not want to know, but please do not judge these people. They did what they had to survive. And if they hadn't, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
So I think of that all the time.
I had a 90-year-old great uncle who was in a nursing home and was very distraught for a long period of time when they told him that he actually had been born out of wedlock.
Oh.
Because somebody had gone back and figured out when their family was married and all. So sometimes it's not worth exploring things to at least spreading the word around.
And sometimes the biggest thing that will bust through a family story is math. Just math.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, those skeletons come out one way or another sometimes, and even more so with DNA out there now.
Yeah.
That's why we have to be so careful of thinking about the other person.
Well, are we all done? Calling it a day till the next time.
Yep.
We got 2 more classes after this, y'all.
And we'll be looking at those problems next time too, and trying to come up with, suggestions and stuff. And hopefully all of us can make a breakthrough by the last session.
Let's hope.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.